Sunday night. You know the feeling. That quiet dread that starts creeping in around 7 p.m. The weekend is almost over. The alarm is already set. The commute is already mapped in your head. The week, the same week, again, is already beginning. Most people call that feeling normal. Robert Kiyosaki calls it a symptom. A symptom of being trapped in what he describes as the most seductive financial prison ever designed, one with no visible bars, no locked doors, and no guards. Just a paycheck that arrives just often enough to keep you from questioning the arrangement. He called it the rat race. And in Rich Dad Poor Dad, the book that changed the financial philosophy of over 40 million people, he laid out exactly how to escape it. But here's the thing most people get wrong about this book. They read it. They feel inspired. They highlight the parts about assets and liabilities. They think about it for a week or two. And then, Monday comes. The alarm goes off. And they get back in the car. Because inspiration without a framework is just a feeling that fades. What Kiyosaki actually gave us, buried inside the stories and the philosophy, is a set of rules. Specific, operational, repeatable rules that, applied consistently, create a different financial outcome than the one the system was designed to give you. Today we're pulling out all 10 of them. Not just what they are, but why they work, and what applying each one actually looks like in your real life, in 2026, starting this week. Let's go. Rule 1. Stop selling your time. Start building systems that generate income without you. Rule number 1. And this is the one that reframes everything. Every 9-to-5 job on earth is built on the same transaction. You give your time. They give you money. You give more time. They give more money. It's clean. It's predictable. And Kiyosaki says it's the fundamental reason most people never escape the trap. Because here's the math nobody shows you when you're 22 and signing your first employment contract. Your time is finite. There are exactly 24 hours in your day. You sleep for some of them. You eat. You commute. You recover. And whatever's left, maybe 8, maybe 10 hours, that's what you're selling. That ceiling never moves. No matter how good you get. No matter how many promotions you earn. You are still selling hours. And hours run out. But here's the thing Rich Dad understood that Poor Dad never did. The wealthy don't primarily earn by selling time. They earn by owning systems. Businesses. Properties. Investments. Assets that produce income whether they show up or not. Most people don't realize this. But the goal of the 9-to-5 escape isn't to work less. It's to make your income independent from your presence. This is where it gets practical for right now. You don't quit your job tomorrow to build a system. You build the system while you have the job. You use your employment income as the fuel to fund the asset column you're quietly assembling on the side. The job is the runway. The system you're building is the plane. And the day your system generates enough to replace your salary, the runway becomes optional. That day doesn't arrive by accident. It arrives because you decided, deliberately, specifically, to build toward it. Rule 1 is making that decision. Right now. Not someday. Rule 2, know the difference between an asset and a liability, and buy assets first. Rule number 2. And this is the one Kiyosaki says is the most important financial concept in the entire book. Deceptively simple. Explosively powerful. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. That's the whole definition. But here's the problem that sits underneath those two sentences. Most people spend their entire working lives buying liabilities, and genuinely believing they're building wealth. The finance car that costs you insurance, fuel, maintenance, and a monthly payment? Liability. The mortgage on a house you live in, that takes money out of your account every single month in payments, taxes, and maintenance. Liability. The gadgets, the subscriptions, the wardrobe upgrades, the restaurant tabs? All liabilities. None of this is moral judgment. Kiyosaki isn't telling you not to enjoy your life. He's telling you to see your financial life clearly. Most people don't realize this, but the entire consumer economy is engineered to make buying liabilities feel like success. The car commercial doesn't sell you a payment, it sells you an identity. The mortgage broker doesn't sell you debt, they sell you the American dream. And it works beautifully on almost everyone. This is where it gets clarifying. The rich, the genuinely, sustainably wealthy, build their asset column first. Every month, before lifestyle spending, they ask, what can I add that puts money back toward me? A dividend-paying stock. A fractional real estate investment. A small business. A royalty. Anything that generates. The liabilities come after. Funded by the income the assets produce. Build the engine first. Let it buy the lifestyle. That sequence, reversed from what almost everyone does, is the entire difference between wealth and the performance of it. Rule 3. Make your money work, so you eventually don't have to. Rule number 3. And this is the one that sounds like a cliche, until you actually sit with the math. Rich Dad's most fundamental belief about money was this. Money is a worker. And like any worker, it should be employed. When your money sits in a low-interest savings account, it's essentially unemployed. It's present technically, but it's not producing anything meaningful. When your money is invested in assets, stocks, real estate, a business, intellectual property, it's working. Every day. Including weekends. Including when you're sick. Including when you're on vacation. But here's the problem most people have with this concept. They think it requires a lot of money to start. A real estate down payment. A significant brokerage account. Something they don't have yet. Most people don't realize this, but the principle of making money work applies at every level. Every dollar you put to work is one less dollar sitting idle. And the habit, the mindset, of deploying capital rather than parking it is more valuable than the initial amount. Warren Buffett famously said he would never want a job, because he has money working for him 24 hours a day. That's not arrogance. That's a description of the system working as intended. This is where it gets interesting for someone just starting out. Kiyosaki isn't saying quit your job the moment you have $500 invested. He's saying start building the system of thinking, and the habit of action, that will eventually make the job optional. Every time you choose to invest instead of spend on something that doesn't matter to you, you're voting for freedom over the trap. Those votes accumulate. And one day, there are enough of them that the scoreboard changes. Rule 4. Mind your own business. Build your asset column, not your boss's. Rule number 4. And this is the one that permanently changes how you see your job description. Kiyosaki makes a distinction that most employees have never considered. Your profession, the job you were hired to do, is not your business. Your profession pays your bills. It funds your lifestyle. It is the transaction you entered into with your employer. Your business, your real business, in Kiyosaki's language, is your asset column. The investments you're building. The side income you're developing. The intellectual property you're accumulating. The financial independence you're engineering. And here's the brutal observation at the center of this rule. Most people spend their careers getting exceptionally good at their profession, at building their employer's business, while their own business gets zero attention. They become expert accountants, brilliant marketers, skilled engineers. And their employer's balance sheet grows accordingly. Meanwhile, their personal asset column stays empty. Because there are only so many hours in a day, and they all went to someone else's vision. Most people don't realize this. But the most valuable hour of your week might not be the one you spend at the office. It might be the hour, any hour, you dedicate to building something you own. This is where it gets clarifying and a little uncomfortable. You are allowed to have a job and a business simultaneously. Millions of people do. The job funds the life while the business builds the future. But it requires protecting that business building time with the same seriousness you protect your job commitments. Because nobody else will protect it for you. Your employer has every incentive to consume as many of your hours as possible. You have to be the one who draws the line. Mind your own business. It doesn't mean be selfish. It means build something that's actually yours. Rule 5. Understand taxes, and use the system the way the wealthy do. Rule number 5. And this is the one that makes most employees quietly furious when they fully understand it. Here's a comparison Kiyosaki lays out that should be required reading in every high school economics class. An employee earns money. The government immediately takes its share before the employee ever touches it. Whatever remains, after taxes, after Social Security, after Medicare, that's what the employee gets to live on and invest with. A business owner earns money. Spends first on legitimate, legal business expenses. Office, equipment, travel, education, health insurance. Then pays taxes on whatever profit is left. Same gross income. Completely different after-tax reality. But here's the thing that makes this feel almost unfair when you first hear it. This isn't a loophole. This isn't a scandal. This is the tax code working exactly as it was designed to work. The government uses tax incentives to encourage the behaviors it wants more of: business creation, job generation, real estate investment, energy development. Every legal deduction and tax advantage available to business owners is there because the government decided to put it there. Most people don't realize this. But the tax code is not a flat, neutral system applied equally to all earners. It is an elaborate incentive structure, and it heavily rewards the behaviors associated with wealth creation. This is where it gets practical right now. You don't need to own a Fortune 500 company to access business owner tax advantages. A legitimate side business, even one earning modest income, opens up deductions for home office space, equipment, education, professional services, and more. The wealthy hire accountants not to do their taxes, but to plan them. To structure their financial life in a way that minimizes what legally leaves and maximizes what stays. If you've never worked with a tax strategist, not a tax preparer, a tax strategist, the difference in what they save you will make your head spin. The system exists. Use it. Rule 6. Overcome the fear of losing money, because playing it safe is the riskiest move of all. Rule number 6. And this is the one most people intellectually agree with, and emotionally can execute. Kiyosaki is direct about this. The fear of losing money is the single biggest barrier between most people and the wealth they say they want. And he doesn't dismiss that fear. He explains it. Most people grew up watching money be scarce. Watching adults stress about it. Watching what happened when there wasn't enough. That experience programs a deep, biological aversion to financial loss, and a corresponding obsession with financial safety. So they keep their money in savings accounts. They avoid the stock market because it could crash. They don't invest in businesses because businesses could fail. They don't take the calculated risk because the downside feels more real than the upside. But here's the thing that makes playing it safe so dangerously costly. Inflation is real. And it is patient. Every year that your money sits in a low-yield account, its purchasing power quietly shrinks. You don't lose dollars. You lose what those dollars can buy. Over 10, 20, 30 years, This safe path of doing nothing is actually a guaranteed, slow-motion loss. Most people don't realize this, but there is no risk-free option in finance. There is only a choice between different kinds of risk, and the people who believe they're avoiding risk by doing nothing are actually choosing one of the most expensive risks available. This is where it gets interesting and actually freeing. Kiyosaki isn't telling you to be reckless. He's telling you to get educated enough that the risks you take are calculated ones. Study the investment before you make it. Start small. Learn from small losses rather than avoiding all exposure entirely. Treat financial education as the tool that converts fear into confidence. Because the alternative, never playing, staying safe forever, guarantees one thing. At 65, you will have nothing more than what your employer decided to give you. Is that the risk you're most comfortable with? Rule 7. Invest in financial education first. It pays the highest returns. Rule number 7. And this might be the most unsexy rule on the list, and the most compellingly important. Kiyosaki doesn't say invest in stocks first. He doesn't say buy real estate first. He doesn't say start a business first. He says invest in your financial education first. Because here's the simple truth underneath that advice. Every financial tool, stocks, real estate, business ownership, tax strategy, requires a level of understanding before it produces results rather than disasters. The person who buys their first investment property without understanding cash flow analysis, vacancy rates, and maintenance costs doesn't become wealthy. They become a stressed, unprepared landlord who often ends up worse off than when they started. The person who invests in the stock market without understanding basic valuation, diversification, or their own risk tolerance doesn't build wealth. They panic sell at the bottom and buy back at the top, the most reliably wealth-destroying pattern in investing. But here's the problem with how most people approach financial education. They treat it as a prerequisite they can skip. They'd rather learn by doing, which sounds admirable until the doing costs them $20,000 in avoidable mistakes. Most people don't realize this, but the cost of financial education is almost always a fraction of the cost of financial ignorance. This is where it gets practical and immediate. You don't need a finance degree. You need deliberate, focused study in the specific areas that support your specific goals. Want to invest in real estate? Spend 3 months studying nothing but real estate fundamentals before you buy anything. Want to build a business? Study the specific market, the specific model, the specific risks before you quit your day job. The education isn't the delay. The education is what makes the action produce results instead of regret. Kiyosaki spent more money on courses, books, seminars, and advisors than most people spend on cars. And he attributes more of his wealth to that spending than to any specific investment he ever made. Rule 8. Use the right people. Your network determines your net worth. Rule number 8. And this one is the most underestimated rule in the entire book. Rich Dad had a philosophy about the people around him that Poor Dad never understood. Poor Dad believed in self-sufficiency, in doing things yourself, in not needing anyone. He was proud of handling his own finances, making his own decisions, solving his own problems. Rich Dad believed in exactly the opposite. He surrounded himself deliberately with people who knew things he didn't. Accountants who specialized in legal tax reduction. Lawyers who understood real estate contracts. Financial advisors who had built wealth themselves. Business partners who brought skills he lacked. And he paid them well. Because he understood something Poor Dad never did. The cost of bad advice always exceeds the cost of good advice. But here's the problem that keeps most people from building this kind of network. They try to save money by doing everything themselves. They file their own taxes without understanding what they're missing. They sign contracts without legal review. They make investment decisions without consulting someone who has done it successfully before them. Most people don't realize this, but the people you take advice from are either compounding your wealth or compounding your mistakes. This is where it gets interesting in 2026. Access to quality financial minds has never been more democratized. Online communities of real estate investors, stock market enthusiasts, tax strategists, and entrepreneurs exist in every niche. The barrier to building a financially sophisticated network is lower today than at any point in history. But you have to be deliberate about it. The people in your current circle, however much you love them, may not be the ones who can help you build the future you're describing. Find the people who have already done what you want to do. Then listen more than you talk. Rule 9. Work to learn, not just to earn. Rule number 9. And this one reframes every job you'll ever have. Rich Dad told young Robert something that seemed almost counterintuitive at the time. Work to learn, not to earn. Don't take a job because of what it pays. Take it because of what it teaches. The skills you accumulate, sales, marketing, management, accounting, leadership, negotiation, these become the foundation of every financial move you'll make for the rest of your life. The person who only ever optimizes for salary is slowly building a one-dimensional skill set that makes them excellent at one very specific thing, and nearly helpless outside of it. But here's the problem with most career advice. It tells you to specialize, to go deep in one lane, to become the best at your function. Which is good advice, if being employed by someone else forever is your goal. Most people don't realize this, but the skills that matter most for building wealth outside a job are almost never the skills that your job pays you to develop. Sales matters. Marketing matters. Leadership matters. The ability to understand a financial statement matters. The ability to negotiate matters. These cross-functional skills are the infrastructure of entrepreneurship, and most people never develop them because they're not in the job description. This is where it gets immediately applicable. Look at your current job differently. Not as a paycheck source, but as a learning environment. What skills available inside that job, that you're not currently using or developing, would directly support the financial life you're trying to build outside it? Sales skills? Leadership experience? Financial reporting? Client relationships? Use the job as a curriculum. Extract everything it can teach you. Then take those skills to your own table. Rule 10. Take action. Financial intelligence without action is just expensive entertainment. Rule number 10. The last one. And this is the rule that separates every person who escapes the 9-to-5 trap from every person who reads the same books, watches the same videos, understands the same concepts, and stays exactly where they are. Kiyosaki is almost impatient about this in the book. And I think it's intentional. He says, near the end, something that has stayed with me longer than almost anything else in the 200 pages. There is gold everywhere. Most people are not trained to see it. And then he adds the part most people skip past. Training your eyes to see it, and then doing nothing, is worse than never having trained them at all. Because knowledge without action doesn't just produce zero results. It produces something worse than zero. It produces the specific, gnawing discomfort of someone who knows exactly what they should be doing and keeps choosing not to. But here's the thing that stops most people at the action step. They wait until they're ready. Until the time is right. Until they have more money, more certainty, more courage, more of whatever they've decided they're currently short on. Most people don't realize this, but readiness is not a state you arrive at. It's a state you create, by starting before you feel ready and letting the action build the confidence that waiting never will. This is where every rule in this video converges into one moment. You now know that trading time for money is a ceiling. You know the asset versus liability distinction. You know how taxes work for business owners. You know that financial education compounds. You know that your network shapes your trajectory. You know that the fear of loss is costing you more than any investment risk ever has. You know the rules. The trap is not lack of knowledge anymore. The trap, right now, is the gap between knowing and doing. Close it. With one action. Today. Not the perfect action. Not the fully researched, completely optimized, absolutely certain action. One action. Before you go to sleep tonight. Open the brokerage account. Buy the first book on real estate investing. Send the email to the accountant. Register the business name. Write down the business idea you've been carrying in your head for 3 years. One action. Because the 9-to-5 trap was never really about a job. It was always about a decision, the decision to let the system decide your financial future instead of deciding it yourself. Today, right now, you can make a different decision. 10 rules. 1 book. 40 million people whose financial thinking was permanently changed by it. Let's run them one final time, fast. Stop selling time and start building systems. Buy assets before liabilities, always in that order. Make your money work so you eventually don't have to. Mind your own business, build your column, not your boss's. Use the tax system the way it was designed to be used. Overcome the fear of loss, because doing nothing is the most expensive risk of all. Invest in your financial education before you invest in anything else. Build the network that compounds your wealth instead of your mistakes. Work to learn, extract every skill your job can teach you. And then act. Now. Before you're ready. Before it's perfect. Here's what I want you to hold on to after this video. The 9-to-5 trap is not a conspiracy. It's not a punishment. It's a default, the financial setting that the system gives you if you don't actively choose something different. And here's the truth about defaults. They're designed for the average outcome. They produce the average life. For the average person who never questioned whether average was acceptable. You questioned it. You're here. You watched this far. That's not nothing. That's the beginning of something. Kiyosaki's rich dad used to say, "The size of your success is measured by the strength of your desire, the size of your dream, and how you handle disappointment along the way." Your desire brought you here. Your dream is whatever made you click on this video. The disappointments, the failed attempts, the setbacks, the moments where the trap pulled you back in, those are not evidence that it can't be done. They're tuition. And every successful person who has ever escaped the trap paid it. Start paying yours. The exit has always been there. Which of these 10 rules hit you hardest, and which one are you applying first? Drop it in the comments. Be specific. Tell me the one action you're taking today. Because I read every single comment, and holding yourself accountable in public is one of the most powerful things you can do. If you want more of this every week, the frameworks, the rules, the real talk about money that nobody taught you, subscribe and hit the bell. We're building something here for people who want more than the default. Full breakdowns of every book in this series are in the description below. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.